You have the coolest intros.
Thank you.
Sorry, I totally just interrupted.
I forgot my entrance. Because Lita and I were just having a really interesting conversation. I was lost in my thought. I totally forgot to make my crazy entrance.
No, the best one was last time anyway.
What's that?
The best one was last time anyway.
The one where you guys came in, or the one where I broke?
Yeah, no, the one where you were there and talking, and Rob and I were supposed to come in, and then we didn't. And you're going,
and then you were completely stranded and panicking, and you were like, "Am I alone now? I don't want to be alone. I don't like this."
I kind of like the one where I destroyed my wall because I went over it and I destroyed my beams on my wall. There's forever.
You fixed your light.
I did fix my light, yeah, but there's like stains on the wall because of that stupid thing. Anyways,
I can teach you some drywall patching off stream.
Love it.
No, he's wearing his wall scars proudly.
Yeah.
That's how he felt.
That's a story.
All right. Well, right from the jump, Rob and I did a stream last week, and some of this is going to get really interesting because how the case has moved since. And one thing that I noticed in the documentary is it seemed to be, obviously the whole documentary is Evan Rachel Wood. Overall, it's her. It's a documentary about her. But
Eric, you're on step 3 again. What documentary?
Oh, the one that's in the subject line, Phoenix Rising.
People just start watching. You got to give them something.
Oh God! Well, Rob, I can't slow down too much, or I'll get the whole thing. I'm 10 minutes in, and you haven't said anything yet.
I just like the look of panic.
Eric,
I like to be able to give that look of panic to you every now and then.
Oh,
Eric,
okay. I see how you are.
Rob's been on YouTube for all of 10 minutes, and he thinks he could tell the pros how to run the
Well, yeah. Well, unfortunately, he's not dealing with one with me, so he probably can. But anyway. Through the documentary that we're covering for Rob Morton, we are looking at Evan Rachel Wood. Obviously, she's the feature of it, but in the sequence, which is this one meeting that took place on October 21st, 2020. And I think it's very significant that almost all the accusers, the people who came out on February 1st, 2021, I believe it was, all are together. All are in the same room. Everybody drops at the same time. It's just kind of an interesting scenario. But out of all these people, one of the main people is Ashley Morgan-Smithline. And it is literally like her and Evan Rachel Wood and a few words allowed by other people. But I kind of am going to criticize the documentary filmmaker for really overshadowing everybody else. It's like, I would have liked to hear more from them. And this becomes especially significant because, as Rob and I covered, there are some major problems with the Ashley Morgan-Smithline case. Let's just say legal issues and everything else. I don't even know what is going to happen with that. So that means that 50% of this context is already, you're kind of going, what's going to happen here? Now, before we get rolling, though, I have to talk about a sponsor, and that is, of course, ExpressVPN. And we love ExpressVPN because they take our data, and when we connect to the internet, they encrypt it. It goes over to the internet, out the other side, and you don't have different companies, different factors, people tracking you. Like, have you ever shopped for something? And everywhere you go on the internet, after you look for something, like a ghost, that item seems to follow you. Well, a VPN can help you with that. Now, a lot of people write back and say, oh, no, I just do incognito mode. I'm in incognito mode, so nobody knows. No. That would be like saying, I'm sitting at my house and I turn the porch light off so people don't know where I live. Because the truth is, your address is out there, and somebody in your house did this. They're following you. This helps prevent that. Last of all, let's say you want to watch a documentary, and you're not able to watch it in your region. You can use ExpressVPN, and they have servers in 94 countries. There's like 3,000 plus servers in all these countries. So if you want to watch an Australian show, you can go to Australia and watch it. Alita lives overseas, and I'm sure she has to use a VPN to watch content here sometimes because she's coming in over the wire and they're saying, sorry, you're not authorized to watch in this region. Spidey, he's Canadian. If he wants to travel around, he's touring in the US, he wants to watch something from Canada, don't know why, but if he does, he can use ExpressVPN to watch it there.
So you should say that, because sometimes like I'm watching a series on Netflix, but it's only available on the Canadian Netflix, even if it's an American show, just somehow whatever deal.
It's a contract deal. Yeah.
So I'll go on tour and I want to continue my series and I can't, so I have to use ExpressVPN and switch it over to Canadian, and then I keep watching my show.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's really safe, and folks, you get 3 months free. I have a link in the description. If you don't see it now, it will appear magically sometime during this show. And thank you very much to ExpressVPN. So on with the show. Spidey, you actually cheated and looked at the clips ahead of time. Of course, I shared them, so it's not really a cheat.
I did my job.
I also,
yeah,
I've seen it twice at this point.
Really? Can you talk about it then, Alita? I am actually curious, just your overall thoughts on the documentary. And I'm going to hold off. I'm trying not to give judgment either way, because all I get to hear is how I might as well be on Manson's payroll, because I love Manson so much. And I don't really feel that way, but I don't want to color anything. So I'm just curious how you feel about it.
There's a reason why I've watched it a couple times before making any kind of content on it. It's because it's one of those that is, I'm always uncomfortable with saying that I don't believe someone making claims, so I'm very hesitant, right? But there are certain parts in the documentary that seemed a little bit off. For me personally, like, I love documentaries. I love a good Ken Burns documentary. Usually the kind that I'm most looking for are the ones that they're looking at a particular historical event from like multiple perspectives, right? They're talking to a bunch of people. But one of the things that struck me about this documentary is it's Evan Rachel Wood, Ilma Gore, and then Evan's parents and her brother. That's all you hear from in this documentary. You don't hear from really anyone else that may have been involved in her life, and there's some strangeness kind of in some of these relationships, I think. And the fact that they keep it so limited, the fact that they don't talk directly to the women that come forward, the fact that his personal assistant, not Ashley Walters, but the other one, what's his face? The fact that he's there at the survivors meeting is a little bit. Dan Cleary. Thank you. The fact that he's there present at the survivors meeting feels like that's kind of an intimate thing for someone like him to be at. But,
a film crew.
Well, a film crew too. Sure.
I'm just saying this is really intimate stuff. And that's something that's like, it's okay. Go on.
Yeah. So there were certain things that struck me as odd. And I've as far as a documentary is concerned, it's not my favorite documentary that I've watched, in terms of like telling a particularly compelling story, I guess. But this is kind of me like working through my thoughts, because I've had them sort of like bouncing around in my head for weeks now, and I haven't really been able to sort of like straighten out how I really feel or think about it, because it's just, I'm not really sure what to make of it, to be totally honest.
No, fair enough.
That's really fair. Mm-hmm. And again, I keep saying this, like we come off as witch hunters often, and that's not what we're trying to do. And yeah, it's very unpleasant, to Lita's point, to look at something like that and try to look for the holes in the story. Like you kind of feel bad doing that. Like, oh, where's the deception? Like, it's tough.
And part of it too is that like by the time you get to the end of the documentary, it's like Evan talks about how she's like, coming out of the FBI interrogation or whatever that she, I can't remember exactly what she calls it, but basically she has an interview with the FBI, which to me, the B-roll that they play during that feels completely inauthentic.
Oh, the music, the bed. Oh God, the music bed. And you saw that with Spidey, your K-Fed video you just did, but that's frustrating when you're like, your emotions. It's like you want to watch this with the sound off.
And I've never worked with the FBI in terms of like a case. So, investigating cases and whatnot. So I don't know for a fact if they allow cameras to be present at all when someone goes in for an interview, but my guess is not. Like my instinct says probably not. So the fact that they're like showing through like an open doorway, like her like reenacting with like, her head getting pulled and all this kind of stuff. Like
Alita, not only probably not, but they do not. That's a controversial thing. They do not film interrogations even. They don't even record those. You can't, and then you can't have a camera in federal court. They really, really don't like cameras at all.
Yeah. You can thank J. Edgar Hoover for that.
Well, you might like cameras for other things, but.
Well, I mean, the fact that the FBI doesn't even audio record their interviews.
Oh,
they put it
yeah.
on a form. And if they say that you lie and it shows up on the form as a lie, they charge you. But
so the fact that like that those aspects are pretty demonstrably dramatized, it leads to the why do that? Shouldn't your story be compelling enough on its own that you don't need to add that kind of stuff? Because then it starts to bring in more questions of like, is your story not authentic? Do you feel the need to doll things up to dramatize it? And then afterwards, when she's talking about it, she says like, oh, I was in there for 5 minutes, and then she says, I mean 6 hours, and no one, like no one questioned me. They believed me. And it's the way that they kind of frame it towards the end is they make you, the viewer, feel like I need to be there to support this person because, I know that victims are often not listened to. They're often not supported. It's like, it's almost like they do a fair job of kind of putting that sort of pressure on the viewer to feel like they should be believing her, to feel like they should be supporting her.
Perfect.
Now, I do want to push back on one thing Alita said, and it's rather significant. I know for a fact that Alita has watched several documentaries, one of which is what cats are actually thinking. So it's not always instructional and historical. Sometimes it's about cats and what they're thinking.
It's on my list to watch because I'm hoping it's going to help me communicate with my little guy.
And folks, sometimes I confess, I might have watched an episode on Netflix that had Spidey in it.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah,
although I think that falls more into the category of edutainment, educational. I wouldn't say documentary. It's educational.
No, that's true. That's true. Well, yeah. I wouldn't consider the cats one the documentary on Netflix because we know nothing about cats. Yeah. I guarantee the veracity is probably equally as strong as any other documentary because cats, every time you think you know a cat, oh, hell no.
No, you know what they're thinking. They're just waiting for you to go to sleep.
Well, yeah, if they were any bigger, we would all be dead because they would eat their owner. That is true.
But yes, back to the issue at hand.
Of course. Okay, so
I love how Terry in the comments is like, Spidey can't tell what his cat is thinking. Like a mentalist who studied behavior for like 20 years, I have no idea what this thing is thinking. It's either you want to be dead right now. Eric, before we start, I just want to touch on something you said earlier, like the comments of people saying how you're a Manson like supporter or lover. So there's sort of this thing that happens with analysis, and I suffer from it a lot, where whenever we're analyzing anyone, it looks like we're against them, but we're not. Like being speculative or being like putting someone under a microscope isn't like, I got quite a few comments, not a whole ton, but a few comments about my Kevin Federline video that I did yesterday. People saying like, you're being really harsh on him. I'm not. I'm analyzing him. I don't have any emotion. I don't heavily hate or heavily love the guy. I'm just analyzing his behavior. So yeah, when you scrutinize, say, why did he say that? Why would he say that? It sounds like we're picking on them, but we're not. And it's the same with the ladies in this case. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Wow. Speaking of those YouTube professionals.
Do that. Why does it do that, man?
Ooh, do not disturb.
Where it goes in through your computer too.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. Sorry.
Yeah, mine does the same.
I would like
in
to
fact, I actually thought it might have been mine when it was first going off. I was like, oh.
I would like to pretend I'm cool, and it was some like TV exec. It was my mom. I'll just tell her.
Yeah, that's cool.
Streaming, mom, I'm streaming.
Well, it makes me think of Big Bang Theory. See, I'll out myself. I'm one of the 10 people, I guess, in the world who like Big Bang Theory because all hipsters are supposed to hate it. And I like the show. I think it's freaking funny.
I like the show, yeah.
I mean, it was running for how many years? Like, they had to have more than 7 supporters.
Yeah, I think so. Well, they had 8. I support them.
Anyways, going back to what I was saying before my mom rudely interrupted us.
Rude.
So rude. Yeah, it's the nature of analysis. When we're looking at something going, why would he say this? Why would he say that? I'm curious about this. It looks like we're picking on the person. We're not. We're just, it's what we do. And it often looks like we're on the side of the other person. So me analyzing Kevin Federline doesn't mean that I love Britney Spears. I like a few of her songs, may have a couple of posters in my bedroom, but it doesn't mean anything. And the same with Eric. I think the fact that we're like analyzing these, this case, it doesn't necessarily mean you love Marilyn Manson. It's just the nature of analysis.
You have posters of Eric on your wall?
I do have posters of Eric right next to the Britney Spears ones.
We pose together.
Love it. Love it.
All right.
All
right. So let's go and start off. And I literally try to excise just this meeting because I think the meeting is the most significant part of it. It's a weird opportunity to see almost all the accusers together in one place, which is very odd. One person is significantly missing. I don't know the full backstory on it, but from what I understand, Esme Bianco was very much involved with all the filming of this, but backed out because she wanted a bigger role or something. That is the rumor. I don't have a communication with her to ask her about it, but I believe she may have actually been there too. I'm not sure though, because this is, cut around.
We do know that I think it was Evan that said in one of her filings that she did say something along the lines that there were more people than were filmed, and there were more people that like listened in or something than were there or something like that.
Well, you see that there's people there, and you'll see them in the background. Like when there's like a couple of these shots I just kept in just to show the group so you could look at all the different people. And they never say anything. They're just kind of sitting there. I guess, they could be their assistants or whatever, but I don't know. It's odd. So let's go and get rolling. I don't want to hold people up.
I'm sorry. On. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's so weird. Yeah, it's so weird to see you again. I wish it was under better circumstances.
It is, actually.
It is. You're right. You're right. It is under better circumstances. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Thanks.
Okay, and now you get this. I'm also getting interrupted a lot, folks, and that a lot of this is for copyright issues and things like that to make sure that we're very clearly adding commentary to every single bit of this because it can be HBO can be very draconian. But Dan Cleary, first person we're here. How do you like the music bed, Spidey? How do you like the music bed, Rob? It's like, oh, we're together finally.
I mean, I see the point. It's theater, it's a documentary. It's theater, so they're going to add that in. It's just their choice.
So, Eric, as you know, I like to pay a lot of attention to setup, like this setting, where we are, what we're saying, what the B-roll is, like what the B-roll suggests. And there's no denying Evan Rachel Wood's is, a lot of people on the chat are going to disagree with the statement I'm about to make, but she's a charming person. When she's on interviews, when she's in front of people, she's very good at connecting with people in the way that they need to be connected to. She's very good at bringing out parts of people that she needs to bring out. She's a good communicator. Look at the hugs she's giving, warm hugs, embraces. This isn't like a informal pelvic distance sort of tappity tap hug with the head looking away. She's fully embracing them, comfort. And even in the hug with Dan, there's a lot of comfort there, even from his side. Full palm contact on the back. There's a bit of a pat and a rub, but there isn't like, when we're uncomfortable with a hug, usually we see those fingers come in a little bit like this because we don't really know what to do with them. A little bit of distancing. It's a full warm embrace. And this is setting up this togetherness, this warmth. We're here for this together. These big, I'm so sorry that we're here under these circumstances. It's setting up tragedy. It's setting up, like even in the prologue, before we even get to the meeting, it's setting up, it's not a smile. Hey, how are you? High five. Good to see you. It's been a while. It's this dramatic meeting. Sure. So it's setting up that this is going to be tragic. This is going to be heavy. This is going to be deep. I'm here for you. Warm embrace. So I'm not saying any of it is ungenuine. I'm just saying that it sets it up a certain way. As she breaks away from the hug with Dan, we hear a shift and we see a shift. We hear her voice quivering as she's hugging him. That usually suggests sadness. And as she breaks away, it turns to joy. We see the eyes of sadness turn into a genuine smile. Corners of the mouth are going up. We have the crow's feet. Happy to see him. I'm touching. I'm connected. He's comfortable. People misinterpret hands in the pocket very often. If you look at the hands in his pocket, it's not the full hand in the pocket. The thumb is hanging out. So if this is the pocket, it's doing this. And when you look at someone with their hands in their pockets, look for those thumbs, because the thumbs hanging out like that is actually pretty high confidence and comfortable. When we see the thumbs, it's usually pretty.
It's similar to crossing legs.
Very similar. It's misinterpreted as discomfort, but it's not. I agree that full hand in pocket can be blocking. Sometimes we see turtling with that. But if the thumbs are out, typically, because we're very protective of our thumbs. If we lose our thumbs, we lose our ability to hold tools, weapons. So we're very protective of our thumbs. When we see those thumbs hanging out, it's actually just comfortable.
How about the reverse? Thumbs in, hands out. That's the same thing, right?
That's less confident.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's like just resting. I mean, some people are doing it just to rest their hands somewhere.
Yeah, and that's why it might be like if you see a very comfortable body language and they're just hanging their thumbs off their belt loops or off their pockets, it's not low confidence. Like I wouldn't jump on that, but it is less confident than fingers in the pockets with the thumbs out. Even with crossed arms, this is confident. But when we start to see those thumbs disappear, steepling, or like if we're like this and all of a sudden the thumbs disappear, this is the confidence is lowering. We're very subconsciously protective of our thumbs more than any other digit. So
to piggyback on that, you ever see a lawyer that's wearing a suit that does this? Like they put it in their suit or they grab their pocket like that. It's to portray confidence. They do that to actually put that out there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's been, Rob nailed that. He's crazy good with body language. That's actually like when they hold the lapel like this or something like this, it's posturing. It's like, look how confident I am. Plus it brings the arms out to take up more space. We call this arms akimbo. Eric, I'm sure it's a term you've heard very often.
Akimbo.
Akimbo brings those arms up. So this is a power pose. It's like, look how confident I am. Great.
Well, it's also the same as Superman ripping his shirt apart. But by the way, just to point a parallel.
Exactly. So all this to say, Dan is pretty comfortable there when he meets her. He's being positive. There's a good connection there. But all this to say, they're setting up like this is a sad, tragic thing, and it is. Makes sense. But yeah, that's being shown.
All right, and it's heavy.
Thank you. Not alone.
No,
You're not alone.
I know, it's crazy. You feel so alone, and then there's so many, and it's like, yeah, we are more powerful than that fucker. All of these people have been hiding and silenced by Brian. They've been threatened, left town. I didn't think we'd ever get to come together like this.
Yeah, you can see there's more people here.
I wonder if that's Esme in the black on the far left.
Not sure. We'll have to keep looking. I'm not. it's hard to know. A weird angle for her.
Mm-hmm.
The voiceover is interesting.
Yeah, and another thing, Spidey, is, am I misinterpreting that Evan Rachel Wood comes off as a leader, if not leader or host to this?
100%, and to the point where I wouldn't be surprised to find out that they put everyone in a room with her not showing up yet, and then had her walk into that room and greet everyone individually and have the camera follow her. That's what it feels to me.
Because she just feels like the center. And now some of it is, I know they're filming it, and I know she's the star. However we break it down, she's the star of this film.
Yeah.
And we'll see Ashley coming up a lot more.
We can all have endless debates over what happened with COVID and masks and stuff, but I will say one thing about masks. It added a tool to my profiling belt. And that tool is the fact that you can think what you want of masks. They're useless. They're useful. I don't care to get into that at all. There's
for face reading, it makes it easier.
For face, what do you mean? What do you mean it makes it easier?
Because you don't get fooled by Duchenne smile. I mean, people smile with their eyes. The mask just takes that out of the equation.
Right.
You literally have to focus on the parts that are going to get the tell anyway.
Right.
So in a weird way, it just blocks.
So for me, what it added, especially in the later part, like once the masses like sort of abandoned the mandates for masks, whenever I see someone with a mask, it limits what that means about the person. Either they have symptoms and they're just wearing it just to be safe, whether it works or not. But that aside, let's say they're feeling fine, they're wearing a mask. We're looking at someone who either is empathetic or is trying to project empathy. I care about people. That's why I'm doing this. Because even if whether masks work or don't, like even if they don't work, like I think people have the mentality of like,
Spidey, this is October 2020 though. I'm going to push back a little bit because this is definitely only 6-7 months into the pandemic, and the masks were far more prevalent at that point. If you talk 2021, then it starts to slip away a little.
Right. But here's all I'm saying about this. I went off on this tangent and telling you what I get of it now, but looking back then, they have two options in this documentary: wear a mask or don't wear a mask. And the decision you make is going to project what you think to the world. Watch this documentary, how you feel about it. So I feel it's funny how the two people wearing masks, was the blonde girl wearing a mask? No, I saw Dan wearing a mask.
Dan was the blonde.
She was at first.
She was at first, and she took it off. Okay,
and they all took it off.
It's fascinating to me that the two people who have a career as being personal assistants are wearing masks. Like, to me, that's it makes so much sense. Like, people who have devoted their careers to caring for other people are wearing masks. Like, I'm just going to do what I think is safe for everyone else, because it may not be, I don't know, but it might be. So I'm just going to wear a mask. Whereas the main actresses and stuff who want to emote, who want to express, who want the camera to catch all the nuances, they're not wearing the mask. And then the blonde girl is at first, and then she's taking it off so the camera could catch those expressions. So to me, it's an interesting thing to see when people choose to wear those masks in a documentary like this.
Well, I'm also curious because you mentioned the point of people that want to emote, and the curiosity that I had was the voiceover. That presumably was filmed either after the fact or several times. Anyone who's ever done video and you do voiceover, it's almost never done on the first take. But if you listen to the voiceover, there's a quiver in the voice as she gets to the end of the statement that she's making. And it seems a little bit out of place for a voiceover. Like that it's being, I don't want to suggest it's being created, but it does add to the theater of it. And it happens in documentaries of everything. I mean, people add emphasis even in voiceovers to try and elicit an emotion from you.
Yeah, good point. And I believe that's Evan Rachel Wood who's doing the voiceover. So it's again, we'll see.
He said that we were the same. You're my twin. You're my soulmate. Soulmate apparently is a thing he really loves to throw around. Then like, I need you around to inspire me. And like in the beginning, it wasn't directed at me, but I saw how he treated people around him. But I'm 18 and I'm going, well, he's just like a really eccentric.
One note, this is something that Evan Rachel Wood does a lot. She's very focused on her age. In almost every interview, she likes to talk about being underage. right here, she just flat out said she's 18. That is not underage unless you're buying alcohol. And I think it's an interesting thing because that you'll just hear it over and over and over. And anyone who's been following the cases is constantly hearing about how young she is and how old he is. He was like 36 or whatever. And while I probably wouldn't date an 18-year-old when I was 36, and I'm not necessarily saying, oh, that's the normal fashionable thing, whatever, she was an adult. And I find it interesting. She constantly brings that up.
Artist, and he's just a complicated person, and like, you know, and they would send me in to go calm him down. I used to be the only person that could calm him. And everyone was like, oh, thank God you're here, Evan. Like, he just loves you.
Oh, on the mask thing, and because I don't want to dwell on it because people kill us, Spidey. I also wonder because none of them are wearing the masks now. So I think that they probably filmed out a sequence and they were probably wearing the masks until they were going to start filming. So when people came in, you had that kind of mix of different things.
Yep.
Now we're all sitting around and notice everybody's mask is off.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Can we also talk about the fact that I love that Evan Rachel Wood is a hand talker? Like, she's a hand and shoulder talker. And I use it in legal when I'm making arguments because you can emote through your hands and shoulders, but you get a lot more of a read on her because she does a lot of that.
Right. And very similar to Manson, as I've shown before. Great. That video is not ready to watch.
I have a couple of notes on this one, Eric.
Yes, sir.
So first of all, when she talks about her former self, we see immediately, like Rob said, she talks all with her hands and shoulders. As she talks about her former self, we see those shoulders go up, both like this. A gesture we know as turtling. So it's defensive, it's blocking, it's showing vulnerability. Like back when, you know, she was dating him and her hands go here. And when she's doing that hand gesture, we're seeing fists, like the palms open and close, open and close. So that's conflict. So Chase Hughes, which you've had on the channel numerous times, trains FBI, CIA, military, one of the biggest experts in the world on body language, talks about digital flexion and digital.
He loves digital flexion.
Yeah,
No. That's one of his. Every body language expert, by the way, has their favorite little thing. Chase likes digital flexion. Greg Hartley likes eye accessing cues.
Yeah.
Scott Rouse likes psychopaths. Anyway, sorry. Go on.
So Chase loves to look at digital flexion, the way the fingers go, because obviously, once again, we get protective. Also, in aggression, things come together like this. We're ready. So it's very strange to see someone in a conversation. Typically, we're seeing either these kinds of gestures, or if someone's a little more comfortable, you might see this kind of thing. It's very rare to see it go that quickly from one to the other. There's some sort of conflict there in her thoughts. She's going between comfort and discomfort, comfort and discomfort. So maybe I'm comfortable here, but this story is making me uncomfortable. So there's some sort of conflict there.
It could be like revisiting a bad memory or something, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've gone past it, so it doesn't affect me as much as it used to, but there's certain things there so it's just strange to see that kind of really rapid, this kind of gesture. Very rare to see that. Okay, one really interesting thing for me at the end there, Eric, can we go back to the assistant who's sitting down and looking up at her?
He said that
Ashley?
like, you know.
Can you bring it up to where we see it?
Video.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you, Rob. Hold on. I'm going to find it. Anyway, I'm not sure who this is on the right. That's the one you were talking about. I don't think that's Esme, Melita.
You don't think so? Okay.
I don't think so. I'm not sure, but yeah. Okay, this is
So right there, press play and try to pause it. We're gonna
Evan, like, he just loves you.
pause. Okay. So
Wow.
Yeah. So Rob's on it. So mouth shrug. Let's talk about that. First of all, the posture. So we talk a lot about crossed arms, and crossed arms, typically there's nothing to look into, because typically if we stand like this, it's just comfort. It's just a comfortable way to stand. This is different. This is called a self hug. Because notice how those hands seem tighter in. You guys see that? So it's a self-soothing hug. It's tighter in. Both the hand is contacting the body as opposed to just more outwards and relaxed like this. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is that mouth. So I love shrugging. And you know, I know, Eric, you often get people in the comments who say, oh, body language is a pseudoscience. There's tons of research on it. And unless you have better research to contradict it, stop talking. So there's Camille Debras, a French researcher who in 2017 did extensive research on shrugging and why we do it. And I can give you an hour speech on why we shrug. I won't. But it comes down to this. It's lacking of something. Lacking power, lacking knowledge, lacking influence. She puts it in 3 different categories, and there's a lot of detail there, but essentially at the end of the day, shrugs mean either I don't know, I don't care, I don't believe. So it's interesting there's a shrug here because, and there's ways to interpret this. We can look at it and say it's skepticism, because skepticism might look like that, like, I'm not sure I believe you, but it can also be like, yep, there's nothing more to say. We totally agree. So shrugging is a very kind of nuanced thing because it can be a lack of knowledge, but it can also be a lack of like, there's nothing more to add. Like, notice how we might see someone make a good point and someone will go, yep, totally agreed. So this expression is very interesting to me. And I'd be interested in the comments. What are you guys seeing here?
Well, they are telling me one thing that they are seeing, that I am wrong, and that is Esme.
Okay.
That is, they've been very
Nailed
firm
it.
about that. So, no, well, I mean, I thought Esme was in this, but it's actually very significant that she's there too. That's all of them. I mean, it's like, wow, we've got, you know, not every single player in the world, but we've got all the major ones all in one room, all with the documentary.
To the point Spidey makes on the crossing arms, try to do this naturally. So when you naturally cross your arms, one is up,
one is
down.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Look at her. That's an intentional. That's an intentional gesture. That's what Spidey says. The hugging.
Yeah.
That's why that.
It's also like a leaning forward into it, kind of like crouching into it, sort of.
Yeah.
Which is different than just.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That's a good point, Alita. When we're comfortable, we typically lean back. She's hunched over. It seems like she's sitting on the ground or something. So that typically would involve us hunching over. And of course, there's other explanations. Maybe she's cold.
Yeah, like an ottoman or something. It looks like she's like on an ottoman or a bench.
That'll usually cause us to hunch. So she could be cold. Yes, it's possible, but it doesn't seem like a cold room. A lot of them are wearing T-shirts. So I think this is some sort of self-comforting thing. And but anyways, I'm really interested in this mouth shrug and what you all think. Is it a lack of, is she not convinced? Is she not sure? Is she? And
well,
remember,
let me play it back a minute and see, because I want to see what she's reacting to. Because that I want to watch the full suite of the expression as she's hearing.
Thank God you're here, Evan. Like, he just loves you.
That looked like a whatever to me.
Almost resentment.
Yeah, I did not see I saw a, here we go. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not quite contempt, but a little bit of a, okay.
The quick,
it again. Here we go again. There's something. Let's play it again.
That is what it looks like. But
the
be
quick nods.
Yeah, be careful with that, because it can also just mean like, yeah, totally. There's nothing more to say. Like, think about how you might do that in a case where someone goes, this happened. You go, yep, I have nothing more to add.
Well, let's look.
God, you're here, Evan. Like, he just loves you.
There is
no. There's that. And that there's
two stance. She's
is it like the squinted eyes or something? I don't know. There's something.
There's something. A supportive look.
Alita nailed it. Nailed it. It's called looking askance. It's that kind of side glare, like sort of. It is contemptuous, but it could be contemptuous towards him or the idea of him. Let's not jump to the conclusion.
It can be, but I'm saying that
it could be. It could be something like, yeah, this is what he would do. Yeah, I dealt with that all the time.
Yeah.
Or an entirely separate resentment, or like because she's being filmed. Like, that's the other thing that you have to take into effect here is like, she's on camera right now. She might not like the fact that she's on camera. That would explain a lot of the turtling. That would explain a lot of the knowing that a camera's pointing at you, going, can we get the camera
except
pointed
she's
away
not
from
looking
me?
at the camera. She's looking elsewhere other than the camera. So she's reacting to that voice, and she's not. So I'm going to push back on that and say, no, not on the camera, because she's not acknowledging the camera at any other point. she's comfortable saying this, and then she's pushing back. So it could be other things, sure, but I'm saying that it is not like a warm.
No, it's not warm. It's not warm at all.
No.
Something there that, and don't know the full reason, but there's something there.
Gavin's in the chat.
I will note.
Sorry.
Sorry. I will note that she is one of the four plaintiffs that has filed a case against Marilyn Manson.
And the nose, didn't even see that micro expression of disgust with the crinkle in the nose.
Yeah, so that shrug will often bring that crinkle, but yeah, there's a difference between this and that. So there was scrunching here, and that's consistent with disgust, maybe contempt. Plus that side, it's called looking askance. Once again, that kind of side look, it's usually contemptuous. Also, to Rob's point, it's possible that she wasn't even reacting to that moment. Like, this is heavily edited. They could have had cameras on it. That looks good there. Let's just put that there. So take it with a grain of salt.
Now, Alita, I think, was going to say that she is one of the main accusers. She holds an even more significant role. And she is the linchpin of a person who existed in the Manson world during most of these situations, except for later. She is the one who had all the contact information for everybody to help Elmagor get a hold of everyone. So she's an interesting participant in the sense that when Elmagor was sending out emails recruiting other people to join their cause, she was a source for information. So, I mean, the assistants have everything quite often. It's their job. Can you go get such and such? Get a hold of fill in the blank. Can you please tell, fill in the blank? But okay. All right. So let's look at the next one.
A few months later, the press were ripping.
Oh, okay. Now this one's going to be an odd one. It's not actually anything in the room, but I thought this is a very significant statement that she made during the documentary.
Me apart because the Heart-Shaped Glasses music video has come out, and everyone is horrified by what they see. I'm mortified. That's when I felt like I went from an A-list actress to trashy. People started calling me a whore and a homewrecker. This is when I was about 19 and he was 37.
So
one of the things that I noticed is that all of the commentary about her being a whore and a homewrecker, whenever they show visuals with that, it's always Perez Hilton, and it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder if was he the only, because I wasn't paying attention to either of them at this time, but I wonder, is he the only one that was doing that? Because that would make a little bit of a difference, I would think, if he was just targeting her. He did the same thing to Britney Spears. I mean, Britney Spears, it is very well documented that the whole media basically had turned against her. But Perez Hilton was like the loudest he's a tip
one. Of the spear because he's a culture guy. He probably was the biggest one at the time. But I saved that for one main reason, because a lot of people were saying, why? She's successful. Why would she ever go after Manson? And I think that her statement right there
was there. Yeah.
It makes sense because Evan Rachel Wood, I don't know that she was an A-list actress at the time, but she's headed right now to be an A-list actress if she's not already there. And maybe, just maybe, if you want your image to be good and to be clean, you don't want to have the embarrassment of somebody behind you. I don't want to say an Emmett Till type of situation, but I'm just saying there is something to consider, that an embarrassing relationship in your life, it has happened in the past that people have lied about the nature of a relationship because they've been caught with somebody who looked bad for them, or later on they wanted to clean up some history. That's all. And I'm just saying it's a possible motive.
That's what he alleges in the defamation complaint. is that he basically says that she was embarrassed for having been in a relationship with him, and that she was essentially doing exactly that. She was trying to clean up her image by coming out with these accusations against him. I mean, the one thing that I've thought about though is that she's not, unless she has some sort of plans of going into politics or something, she's not a politician, right? Like that's in Hollywood, like it, is she gunning for some sort of Disney roles or something? I don't know, because you don't need to be perfectly wholesome in Hollywood to get
Well, that's us saying that.
roles.
That's us saying that. It's like Johnny Depp didn't have to be perfectly wholesome. He damn sure lost everything because of some bad imaging. So I would argue that Marilyn Manson's image is really bad to some people, especially now that charges are laid out. It's hard for her to go run with the other A-list actresses who are on a certain tier. And I wish Mark Robert was here, because I feel like he could add a lot more clarity on that. But there's also just like women age out so much faster in Hollywood. It's totally not fair, but it is a fact of life. You could just go, well, wait a minute, where's Meg Ryan? Everyone that Meg Ryan co-starred with, they're still around. Tom Hanks, heard of him? Seems to be doing okay. But where's Meg? Meg was equal or bigger than he was. And I go over and over and over with just a few exceptions. There's a short little window. And anything is going to stain her reputation like this. And she's in that window where she's about to pop to be really big time. Westworld is solid. She's seen as a really good actress. And if she can say, hey, you know what? It wasn't me. I was totally taken advantage of. And by the way, I was so young. I'm really not that old now. I was so young. Because I'm really, really not young. I was really, really naive. So you gotta forgive me for that. Now moving on. I don't know for sure. I'm just saying that this is a possibility.
Well, I'm coming into this with nothing. I had no idea. I hadn't seen this documentary, etc. I will say that it just caught me off guard. That knowing what I've known about what the documentary is supposed to be talking about, the thing that caught me off guard was what I expected to hear was conversations about the allegations, the substantive, the recovery from the allegations, the actual things that this person went through. But what I heard was a commentary about others' reflection on her as a person and a reputation restoration project. That's just what I heard in that narrative. It just caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting that. And it gives me an idea as to maybe there's a secondary motivation or a primary motivation behind the documentary that I just wasn't aware of.
Sure. Anyway, and that was it. I mean, I just saved that one little sequence just to point out because it's something that stood out to me. So back to the.
When I was his assistant, anyone who hopped on his Wi-Fi, he had your information and was able to, I think, clone phones or laptops or something.
I've seen him, hack into people's laptops and gather information on them as blackmail. He's hacked into my, computer and social media accounts. He's monitoring my every move.
Okay, folks, there's a touch of irony to this scene right now. And Alita, you could take the floor. Why would I say there's a touch of irony to what is being said right here?
He has alleged that Evan Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore have done exactly that to him in his complaint. He claims that they hacked into his computers, hacked into his social media profiles, hacked into his emails, created fake email accounts that would appear to be based on the name of the email or the handle on the email or what have you, that look like it's like Warner 69, like the year that he was born, at gmail.com or something, and then sending links to illicit material.
Very bad CP material, folks. Stuff that will get him arrested if it's caught. That's what they're alleging. So I'm just saying it's ironic because now we have She's saying that he does this kind of thing, and Dan is saying that. He's saying they're doing that kind of thing, and he actually did come up with some evidence of it with the Brighton Gore iPad. But I get into the whole thing of confession by projection, and I'm going, well, one side or the other, I think, is probably confessing by projecting, or they're both doing it, and they're, but pointing out to the other, because if you act in a certain manner, you expect the other person to act in the same manner that you act sometimes, and you can out yourself.
By the way, the connecting to Wi-Fi and being able to clone a phone, I'm sorry, I call that's bullshit.
Thank you.
Not easy.
That's bullshit. You can't do that. Like, and this is someone, I'm a divorce attorney. I deal with forensics on phones all the time. A lot. It is not the idea of cloning a phone. It is not freaking easy.
Yeah.
And the idea that connecting to someone's Wi-Fi network can allow you to clone a phone, unless they are quite literally MI6, Russian Secret Service, American,
Israeli
CIA, Israelis, Navy.
Yes.
Even then, I mean, it's more than just connecting to Wi-Fi.
No, they have you connect it to a computer and they download the entire phone onto the computer. You'd have to have a laptop or something and you plug it in.
Connection.
So here's the thing, Rob. Yeah, and I love that Rob and I came to the same conclusion, and he did it based on evidence, and I did it based on observing the behavior. Can we go back and listen to Dan tell that again? Because I want you to look at something. Look at the shift in confidence when he goes from, they would go on his Wi-Fi, and right at that moment, after he says he would get your information, there's
or
an
something.
instant lack of confidence as he goes towards clone your phone or clone your laptop. Go back, Eric, if you can.
All right. Am I sharing? I got to share the screen. You guys are supposed to help me with that.
Yeah, well, I just did.
Where was Rob? Rob never says anything, so he at least pops up and says, Eric, screen.
By the way, Eric, I want you to know something. I want you to know how dedicated I was to this analysis. You didn't send, like, the videos weren't titled, so to know what my notes were, I looked at the first screen on each one, and I made like a little hand-drawn.
No, look at. Oh.
I know that my notes here are pertaining to this.
Look at that. See, this is how the pros work, folks.
This is how the pros work. So go for it and look at Dan's drop in confidence and how he's not actually saying he clones phones. He's kind of like speculating. Go play it.
Anyone who hopped on his Wi-Fi, he had your information and was able to, I think, clone phones or laptops or something.
Did you see that?
Yeah, the or something.
It's very scrunched. Sitting there, he's looking at them straight on, and he goes, he would go on his Wi-Fi, would get your information. Yeah, that's normal. If somebody goes on your Wi-Fi, you can know what computer or what device was on your Wi-Fi. But then instantly we get that eye block, and just the whole confidence crumbles as he goes, and he would clone your phone or clone a laptop, or I don't know.
The shaking head.
Yeah, he's shaking the head and like sort of eyes closed. He doesn't know. There's a giant gap there, and he's sort of jumping from like, oh, you go on his Wi-Fi, and he'd have your information, fine. Then all of a sudden we travel across a galaxy to get to clone your phone or clone your laptop.
By the way, set expectations and to practice grift. The truth is, no, you can't just clone somebody's phone when they're using your Wi-Fi. However, you can capture their traffic going through your Wi-Fi. That's why I recommend getting ExpressVPN. And you can get 3 months free in the description.
Do they pay extra if you mention them twice in the stream?
That was so good.
It's true.
Eric, that was remarkably impressive.
Love
it. Anyway, moving on, but yes, great points and totally agree.
Hack into people's laptops and gather information on them as blackmail. He's hacked into my, computer and social media accounts. He was monitoring my every move. I couldn't reach out to anybody to say I need help, because if he caught me doing that, then it would be 2 days, it'd be up for 2 days, getting yelled at, pleading my case, trying to talk him off the ledge, he just knew how to break you down.
When I was
okay. And that, let me see, I think that leads into a little segue. I'll have to go by Spidey's drawing.
Let's see what's next. This is
This one, yeah.
Oh,
This little segue is very interesting. Now, what did she just say? That if she was on the computer or did the wrong thing or whatever, that he would essentially take 2 days to talk him down, or you know, what have you.
2 days repeated twice with a self-assuring head nod.
Yes.
Are we talking about that? Are we analyzing that, or you want to move on to the next one?
Oh, if you want to go, if you got something, Spidey,
Just
go
really
for
quick.
it.
Just wait. And again, please,
No.
please, everyone understand. Like me, like analyzing and breaking these things apart. If I was looking at a video of Manson, I would do the same. I'm not against anyone. I'm just pointing out behaviors. I don't think it's all fabrication. That this many people made up entire. I think in each of their stories, there's something that they're going off of, and you know, there's something. But I want to look at the behaviors separately. So she makes a statement, blackmail, and then immediately from that moves on to he's hacked into my, you know, computer and blah, 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 whatever. Don't you need to elaborate on blackmail? Like if you say he would do this all the time, blackmail, give me one concrete example, because you're digging into the how he went into your computer and how you felt, and you're going into a lot of details as to how you felt and you didn't feel comfortable expressing yourself. And I get that. That's important. Like you wanted to say that story. But if you're going to throw around the word blackmail, like if I were going to accuse someone of blackmail, I would give you a very specific scenario of how they got this information, they blackmailed this person, here's how they did it. So I feel like there's a lot of language here where she's just throwing things in there. Hacked, blackmail. These are
She does it all the time. I've complained about her lack of details or specificity quite a lot. I mean, in interviews. But yeah, I totally agree.
Almost in the wrong places. Like I want more information on blackmail and hacked.
Well, especially that, because that's probably not as painful to talk about. Like, oh my God, one time he thought I was talking to such and such, or he found this on my phone, and so he wouldn't give me the phone back for a week because I supposedly did, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So why are you grazing over blackmail and hacked, but you're really focusing on so I kind of feel like it's just we're putting big words there that may not necessarily reflect the depth of what he did. Maybe he went on her phone, maybe went on her computer, maybe he was like one of those overprotective or jealous boyfriends, was looking at maybe. But it's a far cry from that to blackmail and hacked and using.
Well, hold on, we've got footage now that's substantiating what she just said.
Let's go.
This is the proof.
What? I said, who was texting? Texting me? Texting me? Say me? Did you say me or you? What'd you say?
That's really scary so far.
Answer me, for fuck's sake, or I'll kill you.
And that's it.
I don't like that part. I mean, that part, the last part, you can't say
like that at all. Yeah,
that's terrible.
It's a shit thing to say to someone. What, how do you casually drop that in a conversation? Like, listen, I don't think any of us think Manson's like the perfect specimen. That's a really shit thing to say to someone. Answer me or I'll kill you. Like casually, like casual.
Did he say it to her or to himself though? That's the.
I mean, I really don't care at that point. I mean,
okay, I don't.
I'm just, and look, I'm just giving you guys unvarnished. This is what I'm seeing. I don't like that. I don't like half of the statements. I don't like but she was the one accusing him of who are you texting? Who's texting who? What was that? That was word salad.
Right.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there may have been more on either end of what we heard that would have helped to contextualize, would have helped to get a better understanding. But when it's been cropped in such a way like that seems like it probably takes the most damaging parts for public consumption.
Yeah.
That's where I start to feel like I'm maybe being emotionally manipulated as a viewer, and I don't like that.
Well, the sound bed was obviously going in the background when he was saying that, right? That sound.
That's a good point, Alita. That's a good point, because like it's just there's something about the casual way he said "I'll kill you" that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, though. Like, you know, we've all heard like, Give me that phone, or I'm going to kill you. You know, like
right. And honestly, I kind of wonder that, and she never answered him. It was just a weird little.
Well, we don't know. It cut off right there.
I'll tell you why. Because he's quirky like that, and he says things like that, and she's used to him saying things like that. Doesn't mean I'm used to him saying things like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's probably just part of who he is. He says these little ridiculous things, and maybe if you're in a relationship with the guy for X amount of time, you get used to him saying these weird things, and you don't give it much thought. But Rob and I do give it thought because we're not used to hearing someone say something like that. So it's a damn weird thing to say. But it
could
why
be
is it being
something
recorded,
that is,
by the way, too? That's an interesting question.
Right. Yeah. And where like, what's the orientation of people with the recording? And it's just the fact that there's no, like I said, no context to it. It just, I don't know what to do with that clip. I don't know what to do, whether to find it damning or not.
Cabinets. Reminds me a little of Smashed Cabinets.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the context argument.
No, Eric, for me, it's a little different because I've smashed cabinets out of anger and out of.
No. I'm talking specifically. Amber Heard recorded Johnny Depp doing this, but then she edited a tape out and then sent that in. And I just, why is this being recorded? What's going on here? It's this weird placement of the phone or whatever is the recording device that happens to be recording something. I don't understand. It's very weird.
As far as the context argument, when I go to the zoo with my nieces and nephews and they're having a fit, I will sometimes say, "Do you want me to leave you here? I can put you in the cage with the monkeys." It doesn't mean I'm actually going to do that.
Yeah.
It's just you take it out of context though, and it sounds like I'm a terrible person that's going to cage my 5-year-old niece, and it's just not the case. So I just don't like any of that. Doesn't prove something. It doesn't disprove something. I don't like the fact that he said it so nonchalantly. That's just a comfort thing.
It's a nonchalantness that bothers me more than anything else.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's Johnny Depp. Please stop.
No.
He's not Johnny Depp.
Right.
Johnny maybe never said he. That's not the. Never mind.
Yeah, Depp was a very special case. So is this.
Well, but in a similar way, though, you know, seeing Johnny Depp text messages on their own in a vacuum seemed very damning until you learn what his regular language was like, because we started to just swim in Johnny Depp's brain for 6 weeks. So, you know, if we went by Johnny Depp's texts where he's quoting Monty Python, he's equally evil. Because he's going to dunk her and do the witch duck and set her on fire and everything else.
I'm going to be the divorce attorney here. I'm going to be the divorce attorney here and say that I will tell you, every single person in the chat, every single person, period, you guys don't know how bad I can manipulate anything that is on your phone, anything, and take it out of context. I dare every single one of you to look at your phone, look back through your text messages, and tell me I can't pull one thing out of there and make a jury or a judge believe something that wasn't said. It is so dangerous to do that. And especially when you know I can pull deleted stuff off of your phone. These things, and this is also a lesson for the chat, always send your text messages as if one day they will be read out loud in court, because
treat everything you do on a computer communication wise like it's a postcard. That's good advice. It's a postcard. Anybody can read it when you send it.
So him saying, you know, my overall point was that, you know, him saying so nonchalantly, you know, tell me or I'll kill you. That could be his normal language that he says to everyone.
This is so terrible. Anyone who's ever seen Office Space.
Oh gosh.
Hyperbolic comedy is very different. That wasn't hyperbolic.
That was weird.
Yeah, I use comedy like that too all the time. Like you know, in my show, I say things like, if this fails, I'm gonna quit my career and, you know, never go. Like, hyperbolic humor.
Look, okay, I got to tell you something. My wife will say this, right? We'll get irritated. She's like, if you do that again, I will cheerfully strangle you. And the first time she said that, I looked at her and said, cheerfully? And she started to actually laugh. But come on. Yes, it sounds weird, but people say that, and we'll get
I know.
more. We'll get more here.
Yeah, and
Because
Eric, if I was doing analysis of your wife, I would say the same thing. I didn't like hearing that.
Yeah,
right.
You can have an opinion about it or have an impression about it. It just
Sure.
I just think it lacks context.
Of course, it lacks context.
Why I pissed her off. That's the context. Oh. Let me see.
You know, when you're in a rock band, you're on the road, like there's going to be indiscretions with band members or crew people. That's a code of the road that I'm kind of fine with. But when it comes to physical abuse, emotional abuse, and torture, in a lot of your guys' cases,
It's torture.
this is an extreme case from what I've seen in my career. Real quick, I also feel guilty because he would involve assistants directly. I'd be in the room with him and Lindsay.
Here we go. This is exactly it. So now we get to get a little bit more of the context.
But he did.
And he would make me record the things he would say to her, and videotape the things he would say to her. And he would tell her, like, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to chop you up, and Dan is going to bury you in the desert.
Yeah.
He's going to do all this. He's going to put you in the trunk and bury all your parts in the desert. And he would leave the room. And I would go and put my hand on her back and be like, I'm not going to kill you.
Jesus Christ.
Fuck, man, this is so.
Sound kind of similar to some dark text that went by. Now, does anybody think that he's being serious with these statements?
I don't know. I didn't like that Dan said real quick. I mean, that indicated he had something that he needed to say and wanted to say. He had that specific line phrased and canned, ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, to be clear, you're calling BS on the story Dan just told?
No, I'm saying he probably did it. I'm saying he probably said that, and that is part of his humor. That he deliberately, was saying, "Oh, da 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 da." I'm not saying that it's nice or anything else, but I could see him saying that. Is he doing it? No.
No,
I
I
think
just
it's like hyperbolic.
if you're calling that Dan is making up a story that never happened.
No, I think it probably did. I think it probably did happen, and
that's why I was going to push back on that because
He was pretty consistent with his eye contact.
Oh, no,
and
yeah,
he looked very.
And let's be honest, it's a weird thing to make up.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm sure Manson did that all the time. My point is, okay, if you're really worried about that, Dan, why did you keep doing it? Why did you keep taking notes? If you're worried about how Evan Rachel Wood was in 2010, that she was getting thin, we'll find that out later. Why did you just launch on to be Marilyn Manson's assistant later? Because obviously you knew that you were partaking and helping him with all this abuse. He just said the assistants did it. So what? Now it's bad? It doesn't make sense. So I'm just saying, yeah, I think Marilyn Manson absolutely said that. I'm sure he said it all the time. I'm sure he got even more colorful. I'm sure he probably said, hey, I'm going to put fill in the blank into an Iron Maiden and close the door. Does that surprise me? No, not at all.
Eric, I actually had something good on that clip that I wanted to ask you guys and the viewers to chime in on, because it's funny how sometimes in behavior analysis we'll see something that can be interpreted in polar opposite ways, and we're seeing one of those here. And what you just said lends a bit of context to that. So as he's telling his story, he uses the word torture, which is a heavy term. And earlier we were saying that Evan likes big words. She actually reiterates it and confirms, like, no, that's a good word. So it cuts to her and she goes, yeah, it was torture. And we're seeing two things. We're seeing her head is nodding and there's a slow blink. Do we need to go see that again, or do we all?
I'm fine either way. I mean, we can
go back to it so everyone can see what I'm talking about. Well, you actually nailed it. It's a little bit before this, where he used the word torture and she goes torture like this, and we look for the slow blink and the nod.
Well, there's an appeal here too. His expression, that's total appeal.
Isn't it? That the charming, charmer look. Go ahead.
Torture.
This is an extreme
Go a little
case.
further back so we could see her again when it cuts to her. A little more.
Also, I think that the shots showing Evan right here are different than the ones later in this clip, because she has someone else sitting to her left. That's different than right now.
Okay. Cool. Interesting.
Emotional abuse and torture in a lot of your guys' cases. It's torture. This is an extreme case.
With that slow blink.
From what I've seen.
So we see this, it's torture. Slow blink. So here's what I mean in terms of that could be two completely opposite things depending on how you want to interpret that. So nodding obviously happens in agreement. If someone's talking, we agree, we nod. Very common. With that, slow blink often is something we don't want to face. So it could be that she's agreeing, yep, it was torture, and she's slow blinking because she doesn't want to face the memory of that torture. Slow blinking is often something we don't want to face. Very simple. So in that sense, yeah, it's real. It's torture. I'm feeling it. I don't want to experience it. So that is on the, if you're arguing the real side, that's there. If you're arguing the opposite side of that, it could be nodding is self-convincing. If there's something I'm not convinced of, I might nod to convince myself or to convince you. So we sometimes do that to convince, like, yeah, no, it is torture. It's torture. I'm not sure, but I want to be confident to convince you of it. And eye blocking could be because we're unconfident in that position because it wasn't torture. But see how, because she likes to use those big words. So yeah, it's torture. So I could see that being either way. Either she's confirming it's torture and eye blocking because it's unpleasant, or she's nodding to convince that it's torture and eye blocking because she's not so convinced. What you said plays into that, Eric, because yeah. So anyways, the bottom line is, what do you all think in the chat? The three of you as well. What do you, because that could happen in either.
Here's the chat. I'm obviously biased as usual.
Oh no, I'm speaking for myself. Eric's not going to change my mind on one thing or the other. He and I disagree on all kinds of stuff. We can still have discussions about it. I love the discussions we have. I love disagreeing with Spidey. I love disagreeing with Alita. I love those disagreements. One thing that drove me nuts about this one, and Spidey, you caught on. The clip started, and I'm pretty sure I probably threw a smirk on my face, and it was probably misconstrued by everyone because the way the clip started was Dan is doing this over elaborated nodding, and that is a nod. And I talk about this when I talk about attorneys and how they're effective or not. When attorneys are walking backwards and forwards, it's to get your eyes tracking and to get you moving. When people are talking and they're doing a nod, the way that they portray it, and they'll get deeper into the nod if you're not mirroring it. If you start mirroring it, then they'll come back off the nod and do shorter nods. They'll do the big one, and they'll keep going lower and keep getting bigger with the nod until you start to mirror their expression. And I don't like that type of setting because it's a lot of reinforcing, not just reinforcing a feeling, even though it is, it's reinforcing just a narrative. Whether it's true or not, it's not a great setting for unbiased opinions and unbiased discussion.
Yep.
As you were describing that, I was thinking of my brain just started thinking of, those little like bird toys that bob into a water, like a glass of water to drink, and then they come back up again. I don't know why. For some reason, that was the image that was in my head. That's a random thought that contributes basically absolutely nothing to this conversation, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Metaphor, actually. Rob and I spoke at great lengths about Rottenborn, and he did that. And Alita, I think that's a really good comparison because in his closing, Rottenborn did that bird water thing quite a bit. Rob, remember
this is Spidey territory. Spidey, you do that for compliance.
Sure.
In your act, right? I mean, isn't that
compliance? So yeah, if whether it's in hypnosis where you lean in and then lean out to see if they follow, to see if they're mirroring you, if they're synced, but it also does it for focus. Like if you're looking at someone and talking, it has a hypnotic feeling to lean in and then lean out. It creates this sort of, like Eric said, compliance dance. I'm going to ask a very controversial question, and I'm going to ask it to Rob and Alita and Eric and everyone in the chat. Can we go back to that clip? I don't know if we ever made it to the end. I want you to look at Smithline's reaction right at the end. So this guy's talking about this horrific thing, and you see Evan is really connecting with that. This lady, they're looking at it. It's sad. It's tragic. I want you to look at Smithline's reaction at the end. So
she looks bored. That's just a terrible spot to get her, but
it's a bad still frame.
It is. I know that, but it was like, whoa.
We lost mouth shrug, but keep going to the end. Just keep playing it. Oh, I see what you're doing. You don't want to get the copyright thing. Okay.
And he would tell her like, "I'm."
So what? Back or what?
No, it's right at the end. I think she's the last one we see.
Okay.
And he would make me record the things he would say to
I
her,
do.
videotape the things he would say to her, and he would tell her like, "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to chop you up, and Dan is going to bury you in the desert.
Yeah.
He's going to do all this. He's going to put you in the trunk and bury all your parts in the desert." And he would leave the room. And I would go and put my hand on her back and be like, "I'm not going to kill you."
Jesus
See,
Christ.
Fuck, man.
this is
so.
she's somebody else
sorry.
next to her now.
Who's the one next to Evan?
That's Esme. I think that's Esme.
That is Esme, but
Okay,
a minute ago it wasn't.
Okay, I misspoke. I thought they're playing musical chairs. So so that's Esme. Okay, look at Esme. Play it again, look at Esme. Now again, please look at under this context. He's telling a very traumatic story. We could see Evan is connecting. It's hitting her emotionally. Some of the other women in the room as well. But look at Esme. Go ahead.
I'm not going to kill you.
Jesus Christ.
What the fuck, man? This is so weird.
It's so dark. Yeah.
Almost looked like she was looking at lint on her sleeve, but
So
I'm not
Rob,
sure.
in all
She
the
looked like
cases,
she was clenching her teeth.
there was a bit of clenching there. But besides that, Rob, Alita, Eric, I'm asking you, if someone's telling a deeply emotional and tragic story, that like the way that the mood of that music would suggest, is that what you would expect to see in someone who's listening to that story?
On that one, I'm actually not sure, because I won't say automatically that I don't believe her. She could be so overwhelmed with concern that she was avoiding looking, like she was hiding from that story.
Fair.
And that was one thing that, you know, I'm looking at, I'm like, because the clenching of the jaw, the look there, and then the down. I don't know, but it could be I can't.
Yeah,
I can't be part of this.
Right at the end, there's like a slight little second before it cuts off where we do see almost like a small, like a courteous smile type thing.
Okay, and I'll go to. I mean,
Yeah.
I just
Gotcha. Let's see. It's like just
So
before it
dark.
cuts away from her,
So dark.
like right as her face moves right there. Hold on.
yeah. Okay, I saw it.
Did you see it?
Fuck, man. This is so.
Yeah, right there. It's like right as
It's
she's
very
moving.
hard to see.
Yeah, it's almost like that, but you know what? Play it because we feel it more than we see it. And everyone pay attention to that last second before her face leaves the frame.
Fuck, man. This is so weird.
It's so dark. Yeah.
Sit there for like just a quick sec.
It's so hard to see because I can't. It
I think
looks
it's-
like she's
She's
going to go
out of frame.
up into it, but I can't say for sure that it actually happened because it's
I think
cut
it's a
off.
reaction to the hard F.
More courteous. Anyways, all this to say, for me, this is not someone who is deeply connecting emotionally with the story that's being shared. That's the only point I have to make there. It just seems detached and like I don't know who it was, Eric or Rob said she's looking down, like what's the thing there, and sort of like, you know, and yeah, there's a bit of that tension in the jaw. But besides that, I'm not seeing like someone who's, you know, like this is what I would expect to see. The guy's telling the story. I would expect to see more of something along these lines. Something more like that, you know, like more like I'm paying attention to this important story here. But Eric, you're totally right. It could be that this is scarring for her. She doesn't want to revisit it, so she's distracting herself in that moment, not realizing.
Or it's causing her to go inside herself with her own memories or something like that.
Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm on the Manson payroll. I never said that. Everybody erase that. I never would go against any narrative at all.
So anyways, for me, it's not a big point because even if there's zero reaction, even if she's smiling or laughing, it doesn't mean anything. We're under no obligation to react a certain way to something. It's just interesting to me that it's not what I would expect.
Incongruent.
It's incongruent with what I would expect, but it doesn't mean anything.
All right, let's see. Oh,
Yeah, Leah Georgina makes
That's
a
what I
good
know.
point. As someone who's sat in group therapy, this is awkward because typically speaking in group therapy, one of the things that you do is you allow one speaker to hold the floor until they're done, entirely done. Otherwise, you interrupt the therapeutic process. By not allowing them to complete their story and complete it before you go in and actually before you start saying your story, you're supposed to give them comforting messages back to them. You're supposed to help them analyze what they went through and make them feel reinforced. You are not supposed to give your own story because what that does is it's immediately perceived as minimizing of the story that was just said. This back and forth dialogue is not to say it's a feeding frenzy, but it's a feeding frenzy. They're cutting each other off. And there's an escalation to it. this is not a group therapy setting. That's probably why I appear uncomfortable, because I'm not comfortable with how this is taking place.
They're cutting each other off. Who do they think they are? Us?
This isn't therapy.
Well, and again, the cameras and everything in there really, it's so difficult to say that this is an intimate. You know, I would think that a therapy session you would be distractions away, because you're supposed to be in the moment, right, and not having the cameras and things. I don't know. It's hard
and to add to what Rob said, and to prove that we cut each other off, Eric. It also encourages a dynamic of one-upsmanship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If everyone doesn't have the time to say their own thing, and that's another part of the reason. And
he said it.
Did you say that?
He said it.
The one-upsmanship.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Like, you want to put that on me? Okay, I'll take that. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm saying it encourages for that to happen, because if what Rob said is right, one person has their prologue, their main event, their epilogue, then the next person, everyone tells their story in their own time, and each story has the time to arc, come back down, and the next one starts. When it's multiple people talking at the same time, there's often this kind of thing. It's like, oh, I will do this, I will that, oh, I did that, and I did that. So it can happen. It can open the floor for that.
This is also different too, Rob, because in most of these meetings, everyone has a different story, but they're all talking about the same subject, which is an oddity too, right? Like if you go into a survivors meeting, almost every person is a survivor of probably another person or another circumstance. Mm-hmm. This is a case where everyone is talking about the same person, which is highly unusual, I would think. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there are criminals who have been put away, who have, caused harm to multiple people. Maybe there's support groups that do that, but I don't know. It's
and
unusual.
you don't let them use language like they're using. In therapeutic settings, you try to get them away from the use of the words torture, use of the words that are subjective in nature, because by doing that, they're actually not doing anything therapeutic to themselves, because they haven't actually spoken what that means. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a torture, and torture is a subjective term. You have to actually get them to talk about what they actually experienced, because then you can start the healing.
My God, he's an expert in law. He's an expert in behavior analysis, an expert in therapy, the wood stuff.
I'm not kidding. Hey, ladies, man.
Settle down, ladies. Settle down.
That's most about.
All right. So
my tour with you is your physical change over the course of a year. Skinnier, more like almost shy, and talk within the camp was that you were doing more drugs than he was and staying.
You know how many times I tried to get clean and I begged him. I said, I really don't want to do this anymore, and I don't
now
care
she's
if you
back
do it,
again.
Please don't do it
with somebody else sitting next to her.
Yeah. This part here is for people involved to follow up on, and I say it because she said it herself though. People in the camp are saying I was doing more drugs than he was. So she herself is acknowledging that people were saying that. And I have actually heard that from interviews. Everyone check out Colonel Kurtz's channel, because Colonel Kurtz has managed to interview so many insiders and get direct, firsthand accounts from different people. And that is something that has come up, and I think it's interesting that she brought it up too. And then earlier, when I was saying that he pointed out that she was skinny and lost weight, well, did you know that doing cocaine can sometimes cause weight loss? Mm-hmm. Especially if you're doing a lot of it, or if you're doing more drugs and you're not really eating, that you can lose weight, or whatever. It's an interesting thing, and a criticism of Dan Cleary was at this time, because he was a personal assistant in 2013, and now he's talking about Evan Rachel Wood's time with Marilyn Manson, which I believe was before 2010. And at that time, he was not Marilyn Manson's personal assistant. He was actually a guitar tech for the band and did not have much interaction per se with them like later on as a personal assistant. And that is why I was leveling the criticism, and others have as well, that if at a distance you were very concerned that everything was bad, then why would you move into an inner circle type of situation? It's an odd choice. So that's the reason why I brought it up. So
I hope the chat picked up on literally what I just talked about. And Dan's talking and Evan Rachel Wood just steamrolls right over him.
True.
What's the intention of this meeting?
Survivors meeting. I guess it's some kind of a group therapy or something. I don't know.
Where's the therapist?
I don't know.
They're calling it a survivors meeting.
I could tell you the intention for this is to get a lot of drama on film for a documentary.
There could be many different intentions, spoken and unspoken, right? I think that the official line for what they want is that they are gathering women who are survivors of Marilyn Manson so that they can sort of get together and talk about their experiences and kind of have strength in numbers. If they're going to, speak out about him, they can do it together, so to speak, because he's a powerful man or whatever. That is entirely possible. Whether or not you believe that is another story, because there's,
it's damaging. It's not good. I hate it. Everything about it I hate.
Alita, some people in the comments are saying, and I think I agree now, is that it's Esme. She never moved. It's just
it is Esme.
I saw that too. She just put on a blazer and then had. But either way, though, whether being Esme with the blazer off, blazer on, it still bothers me that they cut out. Unless she's like hot and cold and like going through some like major hot flashes or something, that they edited out a portion and kind of spliced it back in. You know what I mean? Like that is something that is annoying to me for a scene like this.
They cut her out. From what I understand, they cut her out of the film because she was very much part of it. Well,
they also reordered some of Evan Rachel Wood's reactions to what Dan was saying.
Mm-hmm. But
which you can tell because of the fact that she's wearing a blazer.
Oh, I understand that, but I think some of this is that I guess Esme and Ashley Morgan-Smithline said Evan's doc, but there was supposed to be some bad blood because I believe Esme was supposed to be an equal partner of this thing, and it was so Evan Rachel Wood that she pulled out of it. So a lot of this is probably reordered while they were trying to cut her out of the film as much as possible. Due to her request.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Like from the side, I couldn't even recognize Esme. Like I don't know what it is. Something about her looks just totally different, and her vibe is a little off. It's very different from what we see when she's in the spotlight. I don't know what it is. Just something about the energy threw me off.
Well, partly because you're always looking at her in the spotlight face on, and not often at angles, and so it's, I don't know.
My bad.
In front of me, don't have it on the tables. Like I am an addict and I don't know how this happened. And that would last like 2 days and then be on my bedside table.
All right. So there we go about prediction.
I have to change my battery on my camera. Give me 1 second.
All right.
Oh, good. Spidey's gone. I can actually
still hear you, Rob.
Go ahead, yell, dude. Whatever.
It was horrible. That was completely horrible. For anyone who's actually going through, and this is horrible because I don't know what any of those women went through. It's just what that meeting did was it watered down anyone's real story. Now their real story is something that's been contributed to or altered by different perceptions of other people. It's absolutely I have never. there is therapeutic sessions where you discuss these things and you voice it. And I'm all for encouraging people to do that in a therapeutic setting. You need to. You have to get out there and actually talk about what you went through. But to have people piling on and giving their experiences is altering your perception of your own. And what that does is any ability to ever convict the person that did these things is now significantly lesser than what it was, because you are coming in there with an altered perception of what you went through. And whether it's altered in a sense that it's heightened, or it's altered in the sense that it's minimized, it's changed. And by changing the story, you're changing the facts that would otherwise have been used to convict the person of doing something wrong. There is nothing about this that is therapeutic. It is not. It is damaging, because you're changing people's own narratives. You are minimizing any experience of any single person in that room that went through something, and they're physically doing it. They're cutting each other off, and they're one-upping each other, which is they are minimizing the experiences of the other people in the room. There might be a real person in that room that was a real victim. They all might be, but they just completely jumped over each other. They minimize each other's experiences. They changed the narrative that they themselves recall. There was nothing about that I liked. I hate it. I hate it. Evan Rachel Wood, if that's what she's standing behind as far as her advocacy for female survivors, I hate it. Get away from it. Don't do that. If you're a victim, don't do anything that you just saw.
Yeah.
Good point.
Hold on.
Nope, Spidey's got notes.
So I know I talked about this study on a different stream, but there might be some people joining us who are new to the channel or didn't watch that stream. So I'm just going to really quickly quote this study again, because I think it's so fascinating and something that everybody should be aware of and everybody should look into. And it's by Kimberly Wade, and it's called "A Picture is Worth 1,000 Lies." And then there's a subtitle to it, "Memory Implantation." That's what she discovered. The study was basically this. She asked the parents of certain students at the college where she was conducting a study to send them childhood pictures, and they doctored pictures of them on hot air balloons. Now, none of these college kids had ever been on hot air balloons in their youth, but they had these fake pictures, and they put it in a pile of real pictures from their youth. And so the student would come in and would be given these pictures just to look at from their childhood. And they're looking at all these pictures, except for one of them, a picture of them on a hot air balloon was completely made up. Then they sit with that for a little while, and then they're asked to tell stories of each of these pictures. And in 50% of cases, the students told elaborate stories about that day on the hot air balloon, who was with them, what they ate, the weather, what they were wearing, what they saw, what they read, only because they saw a picture, one photograph of themselves on a hot air balloon that never happened. Now, this applies in a lot of ways in our lives. There's a lot of expert testimony. Alita and Rob will tell you how ineffective lineups are for identifying criminals. There's stats on this, because what happens is you see someone and you inject that person into the memory. And then in the courtroom, your memory is non-reliable. So, and I've seen this in my own life. I've told people about a trick that I did in a show, and then months later, I see that person, they're talking about the show that they saw, and they describe a trick they never saw. I just told them about it, and it's weird how the mind works. So in a meeting like this, to Rob's point, to Eric's point, when she's giving this narrative and they're all listening to each other's narrative and someone's throwing in something, it actually has the proven ability to go back and change elements of your own memory. Our memory is highly, highly unreliable. That's why there's statute of limitation on things like this, because, or the lawyers can correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I don't know if that's the reason why it's there, but it's
one of them.
What's that?
Multiple reasons.
One of them.
Is one of them the unreliability of memory? Yeah. So that's why, because it's been proven that anything you remember from more than 10 years ago, even if you're sure of it, could very much be a manipulated memory. Memory is not designed for perfection. It's designed for survival.
Good point. And thank you, Beats Kill Bean. Yeah, there really isn't. That's a great point about people have asked multiple times about who's moderating, who's this, who's that. I think you hit on the head. It's really not a support meeting, and therefore, what exactly is it? Well, there is a film crew, and
I'm so sorry.
I've stopped caring about the film crew.
No, I'm saying, well, what's the purpose of it, other than to
know.
capture something?
And I do see the chat, and I see you guys. Look, find me one therapist that says that that's an effective and healing way of going about your experience, and I will gladly put that therapist on a stand and slaughter their credentials to the point where they walk off and never actually testify in a case again. That's it.
Like Dr. Hughes?
I dare you. No therapist is going to stand up and say that's an effective way of handling a tragic event.
So why would they be doing it? What would be the purpose for them getting together in a room with a film crew to do this? If it is not an effective therapy, what is the problem? And I'm just putting it out there. You don't have to answer. I'm just putting that out there as a question.
I mean, it could be. Sorry. It could be that they just decided, like, hey, this is a great idea, without realizing that what they were doing was, in fact, not a great idea. You know, like Evan Rachel Wood's not a therapist herself. Ilma Gore isn't either. So I don't know. Maybe they don't know enough. I mean, I'm just looking at it from a very charitable perspective, looking at them, that it could be that they are just thinking this is a great idea on paper, so let's do it.
And Rain is saying that they are invited by Ilma. It could be ideal. I don't know if the Ilma was inviting to this particular session or to multiple or to whatever else. I know that Ilma did reach out to everyone.
And I mean, that's fine. There's a really easy explanation for it. There's an easier explanation for it. Why do people like to, when they're sitting around a group setting and there's that one person that's not there that's in a group of friends, why does the conversation tend to go back to some criticisms of that person that's not in the room? Because it feels good in the moment. In the moment, it feels good to actually have that reinforcement, to gossip. People gossip for a reason, because there's a good feeling to it in that moment. It's a very shallow feeling, but that's why people do it. They want to feel better about themselves, and therefore they get into a room and they start tearing away at each other or other people that aren't there.
Good point.
I do want to say this really quickly, back to what I was saying earlier. Somebody in the comments said, you do remember traumatic events? False. Memory is actually more unreliable in traumatic events. You might remember the event as a whole, like what happened, but details, no. Look up the case of Jennifer Thompson, one of the best examples of this, where she was SA'd in her apartment, and then in a police lineup, or no, not even lineup, in pictures, the culprit wasn't there. They didn't include him. So she picked one of those pictures as resembling him. And then later in the courtroom, when they put both in front of her, the guy from the picture and the guy who actually did it, she identified the guy from the picture. Because in trauma, your brain is focusing on surviving. So it's not accurate. You might remember overall what happened, but there's dissociation.
That's the problem with lineups. Because that's why they have to be so careful with lineups. And they aren't always, is because if you put somebody there who's close enough, then now I'm uncertain and I'll just latch on. And no, it wasn't that person who did it. It's you put it there, but now I've tied them together and I can't separate it. Because I think the same case you're talking about, she could not separate it because it got planted in her brain that was the person, even though she has all the evidence in the world that no, I think DNA proved that it couldn't have been. It was absolutely somebody else. And she can't escape it, correct? Because here it is. It's like somebody just takes your picture and swaps it in with something else.
Yeah. And so all I'm saying is, listen, I'm not in no way denying that all of these are fabrications, because the truth remains, the core of the memory might be very accurate, but the details and the gravity of things, that is very, very moldable. So there can be a core truth to this. But just all I'm saying is be aware of the fact that memory is manipulable. And the point I'm trying to make is not to discredit any of these stories. Say in a setting like this, it condones memory being manipulated.
All right. Now, those of the chat who were not annoyed enough with me, I'm going to really irritate you, because we're going to have to continue this next time. We're not quite halfway through, or a little more than halfway through. And I have another video of Dan that I would like to look at as well. But I like that we're spending the time actually looking at this and talking over everything. And there's no way that I can actually get through all of this tonight without doing a bum's rush on everything else. Like, yeah, you got it. Okay. Yeah, you got it. Okay. And I refuse to do that. I want to take the time doing this. Thank you. Yeah, blank spots.
Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry you experienced that, but yeah.
Very much. So I'm hoping that everyone can come back next week and we'll keep, continuing this. I love this exploration. I love hanging out, and I love you, chat. Even though I'm irritating everybody, I get it.
Eric, can we plug before we go? Can we plug what's happening on Sunday?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Alita, I haven't invited you yet, but you're absolutely invited if you're free on Sunday. I don't know the time zones and stuff. We'll chat, but Eric and Rob will be on my channel Sunday at 3 p.m. East. We're going to be talking about Britney Spears. We're going to be doing some analysis on that audio recording she posted, looking at her Instagram posts, breaking down some of the language there. We're going to talk a little bit about Kevin Federline, a little bit of a continuation of what we did, just a lot about K-Fed and Britney. Rob will be there to talk to us about conservatorships and what those are normally for. Eric and I will be tackling statement analysis. And Alita, you're more than welcome to join us if you're free on Sunday.
I can talk conservatorships. I've worked on those too.
Oh, perfect.
Love it.
And between now and Sunday, you can check me out on tomorrow night, Friday night Frenzy. We're going to go over Girardi in detail. That bankruptcy claims went from 100 million to 500 million in a drop of a hat.
Ooh.
That's a lot.
A little bit. Well, good times for all. Thank you very much. Hope to see you at Rob's on Friday, Spidey on Sunday. Somewhere in the middle.
For me,
I'm on Twitter, Instagram. If you want to check me out there, Hunley Eric. Well, pretty much on everything. And we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.